Really excited, for the final Fireside chat today. As Pearl mentioned, I'm Marty Berman, VP of Sales of North America and LATAM for AdMix. And, you know, I'm excited here again to talk with Aaron. Aaron is the CMO of Thistle and how they've been leveraging the digital landscape to grow. Aaron, thank you so much for taking the time to share your insights today.
Definitely. Glad to be here.
Thanks. Quick intro about AdMix real quickly. If you guys aren't familiar, we are a pioneering platform that bridges the gap between gaming and advertising, driving what we call the in-play movement, integrating data-driven ads, available programmatically and also with custom integrations into non-disruptive immersive gameplay, meaning our ads are displayed within the game experience, not the annoying rewarded video or disruptive ads that you can't close. Aaron's been with Thistle for almost about 2 years, right?
Yeah, about a year and a half. These last 2 years, does time even start?
That's a very good point. Very good point. But Aaron brings a tremendous amount of experience, having previously held a number of marketing roles, and as well as a very robust advising roles with other companies. So we're really excited to have Aaron here.
Great, thank you.
Anything you want to add before we dive in? Anything you want to say before we get started?
Well, I'll just jump in a little high level about, Thistle. We're a subscription food service that delivers delicious and nutritious plant-based meals, snacks, cold press organic juices to your door. We're perfect for your busy but health conscious, household. I think, we're as a mission, our goal is to help people get and stay healthy. But the big part of that is while improving the sustainability of the food system and how it all works together. We want to be additive through the entire ecosystem. So that's a little bit about Thistle.
Great. And a lot of gluten-free, right?
Yeah, definitely. Primarily, vegan at the core, not getting people to become vegan, getting people to eat less meat. Folks like myself, that I'm a flexitarian, I also know I should eat less meat, and Thistle is a great solution, for me, so I don't even have to think about it.
Great. And more importantly, I really think the sustainability of food is such a big issue today. There's so much food waste that goes on in our ecosystem, in our communities. It's appalling. So kudos to you guys to really taking a very big stance on that, because I think there's so much food that is wasted today.
There's a couple things that go into that, from the overall climate change impact, as we all get solar powers and we ride bikes and, we do these things. The number one way that you can have a positive impact on the climate is by eating more plants, right? Like, because the entire infrastructure that goes into supporting meat-based products. And then secondarily, food waste for sure. I read a stat recently, if food waste was a country, everyone loves that. If it was a country, it'd be the third largest releaser of CO2 emissions behind China. Yeah, so it's a really big deal. And then you layer that down to the food ecosystem. Like, people should know where their food comes from, how it's processed. We promote our farmers and food crafters all the time, and we support living wages. So it's like the entire ecosystem has to work for, quite frankly, for this planet to work.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's a tremendous amount of water waste that goes on in growing fruits and vegetables that never even see the table. And they just get wasted, and it just all throughout that host system. There's just so much waste that goes on that contributes to a lot of different poor effects on the economy and the ecosystem. So, well, great. So, thanks for sharing. I'm excited to talk. So, Thistle's been around for almost 10 years, and you've been there almost, as we saw, you've been there about a year and a half, which I know is not a great period of time, but since you've joined, they've raised $10.5 million, which I'll bring up a little bit later. But what have been like one or two of the top learnings that you've had since joining the company?
Well, to your point, so Thistle as an entity for sure has been around for a long time. Launched as a cold pressed juice, solution. My actual first interaction with Thistle was I used to work in the Mission in San Francisco, walking down Valencia, and I bought the juices from, our co-founders, Ash and Shiri, I don't know how many, probably close to 10 years ago. But, then the business evolved, brought on, food, obviously became a subscription service versus on demand. And then really as it's evolved over the last, couple of years is, continuing to enhance our food offering. The main thing in the food space, right? If you don't have delicious food, nothing else matters. We have an incredible culinary team, of chefs and restaurant dietitians that put together rotating menus week after week, that maintain an incredibly high food rating that we get from our customers. And I think, as a marketer's best friend is a product that people love, right? So from that aspect, we're super fortunate in our space to have really strong retention, because we have freshness, we have variety, world crafted meals that allows you to eat the rainbow every day, which is super important in eating and nutrition. And then as we've evolved, really these last couple of years, I think there's a couple things that, a few people have talked about. I know Kim talked about it from Good Cell earlier today. Like COVID accelerated a lot of things, but those things are now part and parcel for what people are doing. I think there's some greater macro trends. People will continue to be more busy tomorrow than they are today, and they're going to need solutions that make particularly things like eating even simpler. I think people are more comfortable buying things online. That's gonna continue tomorrow more than it is today. And lastly, people are gonna have an appreciation for the impact their buying decisions make on the overall planet. So with those three greater macro trends, I think Thistle's well positioned, and hopefully are providing a great value to our customers to continue to keep them healthy.
Yeah, and those are a couple of great points, because if you look at the value of brand values,
Right.
so important with sort of Gen Z and the younger generations, millennials and so forth. But it's also important, like to me, like what is the source of the products? Where are they coming from? What are they doing? What are their values as a brand? And I think that is so important today. And then also, to your point, I was just on another Fireside chat yesterday, or actually sort of a private roundtable. And that was two of the things that were really important for the brands, was finding those champions and really leveraging those as brand champions, but they're consumers. And so how do you, as a brand, how do you leverage those brand champions in your marketing and,
Yep.
social media and so forth? So I think there's definitely a lot of things that can be done there. And actually, it's a great segue. What, as it specifically relates to digital,
Yeah.
what have you found to be that best digital channel for your brand in terms of growing and have been the most effective for you?
Yeah, and I'll just loosely define digital, right? I think, the main thing is we're a DTC brand.
Yep.
You can't go to the store, pick us up. But I think the concept of digital is very broad now, right? And not get too esoteric, but it all works together, right? And I
Yeah.
think the main point is, from a brand, if you have a great product people love, hopefully word of mouth is where most of your customers come from, and they may in the end click on an ad and they may, get this piece of collateral, but hopefully they heard about you from a friend or family member. And so that's an area where, not digital, it plays into the funnel from a digital ecosystem or from an advertising ecosystem. One thing we have done aggressively and I think appropriately over the last couple of years is making sure we're diversifying our marketing mix away from the standard DTC 90% Facebook ecosystem, 10% Google ecosystem.
Where does that leave the rest of us?
Right. I won't get into philosophical reasons behind that, but right, and really diversify. So one thing that's been interesting is, as we layer in new partners and new channels, seeing how the rising tide raises all boats. But it's not all digital, right? Like direct mail works quite hard. I think every DTC brand these days is really, leaning into direct mail. I think so much of it is, what is your open rate, to use a digital term, right? Direct mail has 100% open rate. It may be delayed. They may only check their mail on weekends, but they get the piece. And then where it's been interesting is seeing how that plays into when direct mails are in flight, your direct traffic, which may not tease out from the digital landscape, but the influence is there. And also, again, how does brand search get positively impacted by this entire piece? We recently layered in, and we may be late to the game, we may be early to the game, depending on how you look at it. But I think a thoughtful approach to how we think about programmatic display and retargeting. As the entire ads ecosystem has shifted, it's all about finding tools that can help you, maintain your relevant and presence for your customers. And then just, continue layering tests and making sure you have the right budget set aside for tests. Because I mean, particularly this week, CPMs are already climbing to just ridiculous amounts. So we're fortunate that we have a bunch of, tools to rely on.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. And yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I live in Chicago. I shouldn't say unfortunate, but I live in Chicago, and our mail, I would say, is not great. I'm just happy to get something in the mail. I just don't know how late it's been, how long it took to get here.
Yeah.
But and it's a great segue to my next question, which is, as it relates to digital, obviously that's an important channel in some respects to what you're doing, and obviously direct to consumer. Yeah. But what have you found to be the best, or excuse me, sorry, I was asking the wrong question, but what have you found? Digital changes so frequently, and obviously the appreciation of the third-party cookie. You brought up programmatic and how you're using that. It can challenge the best laid plans. So, what do you see as the biggest challenges within digital as you look to the future?
And maybe unpopular opinion. I think the simpleness of how digital has been the last handful of years have made us lazy marketers, right? Throw some creative out, this algorithm's going to go find all the right people. It's going to be super efficient. You don't have to think about it. And I think we got away from making sure we're asking ourselves, how can we provide value to our customers, right? And I think whatever match you call it between Facebook and Apple, one thing it's really shown appreciation for, and I think the brands that are, moving ahead and accelerating in strange times, is really around that. Like, what are the brands that are looking to provide value? And if you provide value to that customer versus trying to extract dollars, then they will reward you with lifetime value in the form of dollars, right? So I think that's the aspect. And some things we've been leaning into already, but definitely accelerating is, in our business, we're in the health space, right? Well, specifically food, but we ask our customers, we really lean into zero party data, right? Like, let's ask these customers, people that are trusting us with the food they eat, which is like one of the most, highest level of trust you can have, and we'll ask them information around, them, their preferences, their personalities. And then we try to serve up, content that's relevant to them, right? And that builds on this relationship that we have. Our customers, we're a food subscription service that they get meals delivered every single week, right? So we need to be able to, tell them about freshness and food that's coming, but also, again, highlight the farmer that we're working with, in Central Valley, California.
Right. There's a story behind that and where your food came from, which is very important. Again, getting back to the brand values, right?
Exactly. And like an example, we found like our customers that love our food, they, want the recipes. And a lot of places would maybe hold off on that. We're very supportive. We encourage people to make their own. We've built communities on Facebook and in, various ecosystems. We have a registered dietitian program. We have all these things, but it all comes from asking the customer, how can we provide more value to you? And then if you do that well, they will trust you and reward you with loyalty.
Yeah, no. And you're 100% right with, the depreciation of the third-party cookie and all the changes that are happening. It's what you're sharing is not uncommon. When I speak to brand marketers all the time, and that is, we've got to go back to basics. You've got to go back to inviting consumers in as a brand because you're demonstrating value to their lives and building that brand story, as opposed to chasing them around and targeting because you can't.
Yeah. And it's interesting. And if you build that trust, your customer will definitely come along with you. An example we had, there's no secret, all costs are going up and, hiring, we handle, think of us as a vertically integrated restaurant. So we handle everything from food prep, making, all the way down to hiring the drivers to make the delivery. And because we care so much about climate change, we have reverse logistics where they pick up the bags and ice packs to recycle and reuse and clean to put them back in the ecosystem, right? So it's a very operationally complex business. Hiring's not simple for anyone right now. And so one thing we really, took a stand early in 2021 to say, the idea of luckily we were always paying above minimum wage, but the idea of pegging minimum wage to what success looks like was outdated. So we committed to a living wage. And I think back in February, we increased the minimum wage, entry-level wage of everyone at Thistle to $20 an hour. So in order to make sure we can do that, we worked with our customers and we said, hey, here's what we want to do. Here's why it's important. Here's why living wage and how it's impacted the food ecosystem so much, how big of a deal it is. And in order to do that, we're going to have a $2.95 delivery charge. Right. So we explained why versus how some others have just said, and starting next week, it's a delivery charge. I won't name any names. And in doing that, we actually got very positive response, from people like, oh, I'd love to support this. And, I love what it's going for. I love what it stands for. And I think it goes back to, because now marketers, we need to get back to what that brand is about and why that brand matters. And then hopefully we can find digital ways to share that with others that can acquire more customers.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, you're inviting the customer in to understand the value that you're providing, not only to them, but also to the employees, to the workforce, and why that's important. And, oh, by the way, because this is what we want to do, there's going to be an additional charge. And we wanted to bring you along and invite you into that process so that you understand it, because that is what our company is about.
Exactly.
And that, and it's a story that you're telling and reinforcing that that value for consumers in terms of why they want to buy from you.
That's right. That's right.
Right. You're not just, you're not commoditizing your product, but you're really showing and demonstrating the value of that throughout the whole chain, and why, it's a little bit more to pay for your delivery, but here's where that money's going.
That's right. And we, I think I used to always believe that brands had an opportunity to stand for something and, make a statement about it. I think the brands of tomorrow have a responsibility too, right? And I think that sort of shift is, you had some early brands like the Patagonias of the world who would, raise their flag and stand for something. And now I think, consumers are expecting that, and they want to know what you stand for, why it's important, and then how you bring that story to life, and make sure it's authentic, to use an overused word, but, it's got to be real, and it's got to be how you make business decisions.
Yeah. And I mean, authenticity today with today's consumers is so important. It really is.
You'll be found out.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. And, listen, as we talked about, as we talk about digital, but which isn't the only channel that you're using, but where do you see the biggest opportunities and what are you most excited about for the future within digital for Thistle? Like, again, you've mentioned, using a number of different tactics, but, obviously with digital changing so much, what are you excited about in terms of leveraging digital for your business?
Yeah, I think probably what is exciting is the same thing that's always been exciting of, you have a better opportunity to do storytelling, right? And I think where the options are is within each of these, let's call them platforms, how does that layer in from a funnel, to get to now a marketing perspective, the funnel to help people through the decision making, right? So you have an opportunity to, really tell the story on the, prospecting side. You have an opportunity to then remind them and give them other reasons to believe along the way. And then once they've converted, you have the opportunity to keep them engaged. And I think where, now then what's hard right now, oftentimes in the last few years or historically, you prospect a whole bunch of people, then you retarget the hell out of them. And then that's where a lot of your efficient conversions would come from. And as that audience is shrinking, the concept of a full funnel is still there, but each layer has to work harder so that you can be more engaged. So the importance of being able to engage directly with your customers and potential customers, whether it's through email, SMS, private groups, whether it's on Facebook or WhatsApp or, Instagram, it doesn't matter. Sadly, I just named 3 Facebook.
Yeah, I wasn't going to call you out on that,
yeah.
but yes,
but you know what I mean?
Our own Meta.
Yeah, Strava groups, whatever the case is, right? Like, I think there are these opportunities that are omnipresent because as, Emily was just talking about, everyone has the most powerful computer in the world in their pocket all the time. And then they're connected at home when they're out, I think the example she was given was, driving the kids to school, they can still be, engaged from a work perspective while also being engaged as a parent. But all those pieces, work together. And from a digital aspect, where I think the ecosystem gets smart is when you can sort of string these all together, and understand how the story narrative is working at each of these touch points. And I think that's the value that digital provides. And I do believe, I'm bullish on, it will only get better as these ecosystems work harder. And we get outside of the mindset of these walled gardens and more into, this natural line across the journey.
Yeah, and it really is, it's more of a journey today than it is a funnel, because I think it is, because there's so many different channels that people can interact with your brand, that it's just not a linear, like, okay, boom, 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 purchase.
That's right.
There's a lot more involved in the process now, and it's a journey, and you've got to make sure. It's a journey. Yeah. So, yeah, thanks for sharing. I mean, I think that's it's really interesting, and it's as we look to the future, there's so many changes that are coming down the pike. I mean, you think, Web 3.0 and the metaverse is going to completely challenge marketers again in terms of how they interact with consumers and what that consumer experience and journey looks like.
Right.
And that's in the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
So it's going to turn everything on its head again, but it wouldn't be digital if that wasn't the case. Right?
That's what keeps us young.
Exactly. At least mentally.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that you guys are direct to consumer food delivery in the delivery space, and obviously it's a fairly crowded market. And I know that you view yourselves as you're non-meat focused and gluten-free and all the sustainability and so forth. So it separates, and you almost see yourselves as a complement to any of the other food services to a certain extent. At least that's what I read. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But what earlier this year, you guys raised, as I mentioned, $10.5 million, primarily is to expand to other markets and your offerings. What, over the course of the past year, have you been leveraging those funds differently? Now that you have more funds, how have you been making those dollars work, and what's been effective, what hasn't, and how do you see that really? Has that been able to be found it to be successful?
Yeah. And I'll start with the sort of general real or perceived competitor set, right? We are all doing, I think, hard things. And we're trying to help people eat healthy, some more than others, but when they want, how they want, in a fresh and simple approach. And I think I read a stat, when you think about it in a crowded space, I think the largest restaurant in the world owns 3% of the market, and that's McDonald's, right? So like when you think about how crowded, sure, but we as people are always looking for different solutions for different reasons. And our goal is to support the entire ecosystem with that. And, an example, even when we're based in California, when California started opening back up in June, we pushed this whole campaign is get out and support a local restaurant. And if you give us a copy of your receipt, we'll credit you back up to $25. Like, we just want you to go out and support the ecosystem. I think that's so important to how it all works together. So when you think about, where are we growing and how are we investing? While we've been around for a while, our true inflection point, as a differentiation of business, really came in like 2018. We were capacity constrained from a facility perspective. We couldn't grow. So as we look at, raising, funds, is we now have a great larger plant that we're able to produce, our meals from. That one plant gives us opportunity to fulfill fresh delivered meals from Seattle to Las Vegas, so it's allowed us to expand our footprint pretty well and pretty aggressively, and making sure that we have the opportunity to test in different channels and find what's working. And I think that's the chance of figuring out how it's all working together, hiring amazing people, to allow us to continue to grow. I think those are the key aspects. And then as you're teasing out, again, what is something we can do that provides value to our customers based on what we have? And an example is when we found that, not that we found, but we knew, but we were able to take advantage of, within our company, we have a number of registered dietitians on staff and health nutritionists and things like that. And a couple of them were in our success, your customer service team. And what we're able to do is later on, if you're a new customer, we invite you, to take advantage of a 4-week free consultation with our own in-house registered dietitians that'll set you up on your plan, make sure that you know how you're getting all the nutrition you need from across all your meals. And of course, we're not saying, oh, and it's all got to be Thistle, but we're providing a value that helps you along the way. What's been exciting is of the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of customers that we've had that go through that, it's got a 100 NPS, right? Like when you think about now we're providing a value, and we're getting people that, oh, I missed the email, but I just heard from my friend that she got this through Thistle. Is this something I can do? Like you can see it working. And then it's translating even to like our Facebook community where people are bringing the entire community along on their, journey for, health and wellness. And it's actually been amazing to see how that all works together, and continuing to reinvest in those efforts so that we can, hopefully provide more value to our customers in the future.
That's great. Yeah, no, that's awesome. And as a marketing leader, what have you found to be the most effective tools? Your team, I imagine, is growing, right?
Yeah.
And so what tools have you found to be, as a marketing leader to be really effective along those lines? And then what do you think, what do you value most from your team? What do you expect of them from, their values and so forth, which I would imagine is very built into the ethos of the company because of the sustainability and and all the other aspects of your business.
So a couple things. So I started, right in the thick of COVID. I think it was 8 months before I met my team in person. Right. So that's right. And we've all so many of us are challenged with that. Hiring new people, what does that mean? We decided we're a remote first company for roles where that makes sense. So I'd say, from the tools, it's your standard, we're Slack, Zoom, blah, blah, blah. But I think what's important is finding time to engage with folks on things outside of work. Because I think the unfortunate aspect of this is, okay, I log in, I'm always on. And then as soon as this meeting stops, the next meeting starts. And it's just this rotation and this hamster wheel. And I think what, we find is making sure that we have downtime. And I think this is another example. Emily was talking about, I'm sorry, I don't remember the moderator's name, but he was talking about this, 20-minute water cooler. That's sort of how we start our Mondays, talk about the weekend, just talk about what you have going on in life, and making sure it's not all about this box. And one of our popular Slack channels internally is called Outside the Box, like share stuff about your life outside this box, right? But I think what's important, and also a challenge for us leaders, is as you're growing, how do you identify the next leader efficiently and effectively? And how do you give them opportunities to actually lead? And I think, this is an area where I think we do well in some cases, not as well in others. But I think even being conscious of that is so important, right? Because you don't have the walking between meetings conversation. You don't have pop by the desk. So how do you facilitate opportunities for someone who may be more junior? How do you give them a chance to, interact, engage, and things like that? And as we talked about, whether it's office hours of our founders, we're fortunate we have a husband and wife founding team who work well together, but they also bring the importance of appreciating that people have lives outside of work, right? They have a young daughter, and that permeates through everything. One of our most popular, call it, events is our co-founder Sherry. She'll hold an office hour and then just, hey, I'm just here, come chat, hang out. And the number of staff that will go just to say hi and engage and interact is wonderful. And I think that's the key component of how do you think about these technologies outside of what they can actually provide, and find ways to have in-person engagements, because that's where the value of connectivity actually comes in.
Yeah, and I think that, you're spot on. That has been probably the biggest challenge as we've all moved to this COVID environment, is that it's just as meeting to meeting to meeting, right, and not that time to just kind of like shoot,
Yeah.
talk. What did you do this weekend? What's going on? What do more about people's lives as opposed to just, hey, we're here for a meeting. What's going on? Okay, great.
Right.
And I think that is a huge driver in the culture of a company, and being able to allow for that, as opposed to just making it all about work and meetings. Right. And also, I mean, I find myself too, our company is headquartered in the UK. My mornings are shot. Yeah. I mean, I usually started about 7 a.m. with right into meetings.
Just zoom.
And so like my mornings up until about noon are just crazy. And then the people that I do have to communicate, like if I don't plan anything in the morning to get in touch with people, I'm still reaching out to them when it's 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. Right. And we always are like, you don't have to respond, but because we need the answer we can deal with the answer tomorrow. But they feel this need too, to always being responding, right? And you don't want, I don't want somebody responding at 9 or 10 o'clock at night. But I also need to get that out there, because if I wait until tomorrow, I've already missed another day.
Yeah. And I think understanding and appreciating, and I do think this is a big area that Ash and Sherry our co-founders have been so great at, is, again, just because like when you and I have time to get to an email, that does not mean you're expected to be on. But separately, we did hear loudly the feedback that my workday never ends. Right? Like I'm up, there's no commute time, so I don't have any downtime, right? And what we instituted early in the year is First Fridays. First Friday was designed to help people get out and get into the community, right? And for us, we're like, that's actually pretty important. So the first Friday of every month is our office is closed. And the reason that's so valuable is because it's closed for everyone, right? So it's not like a team taken off, but really you have to be connected all day. Like it's recognized, it's closed. And as a benefit, I think that's probably been the biggest benefit I've ever been part of in any organization, because it's respecting people's time, right? And I think that's so valuable, whether it's a customer or employee or a friend or family. Like respecting that time is really how you can set yourself apart. And that's been a big deal for us. It certainly plays in our recruiting for sure, because you can have flexible, unlimited PTO, but structured, organized time off is very valuable.
Yeah, just because you have it doesn't mean, most Americans never take advantage of that, because they don't want to be perceived as taking time off.
That's right.
But, again, I think, with COVID and everything else that's happened, and the changing work environment, well, there's some people that value that commute time to get some time off. There's others that are like, why am I wasting 45 minutes to go into an office just because I have an office, when I can accomplish more without, 2 hours just spent commuting back and forth. I'm a little bit more fortunate. I've usually had, no more than 15, 20 minutes door to door. I live in a city, so it's a little bit easier for me. But, I think though, it just is, it's kind of made people realize what's important. Yeah. And then, within working and where you're working, but, at the same time, I think throughout this whole period, there've been a lot of other challenges in family lives and other responsibilities that people have had to take, that, they need time mentally just to recuperate, right? It just is, because there's so many other challenges that are going on in their life that we may or may not be aware of. And without that downtime to be able to really leverage, you could, there's so much burnout, and there's so much, people just quitting right now. I want to know where they're all going. Nobody can hire anybody.
No one can hire. No, but I'll touch on that, because that's interesting. I've actually come 180 degrees. I was always, as a leader, a big believer, no, we're better together. This work from home doesn't work. We're going to be less efficient. I realize how I'm so much more efficient now, because I've, time, specifically allotted. I don't have to wear hard pants all the time. Like I'm not sitting on, public transit, dealing, like it's allowed me to spend more time with my family, which to me is what's most important, and then, and because of that, it allows me much more present with my work than I've probably ever been able to do.
Yeah, no, definitely a lot more family time, which has been great. That's definitely been a benefit for us. Our kids were, remote learning, and it's a little crazy where there were all 4 of us in the house, at the same time, and that was a little disconcerting.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. So and then
but we're also at the same time, we're also super fortunate we have the ability to do that,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
not lose sight that a lot of people, can't.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I know we're getting close to time. I have a question. What have you found the most effective strategy, or not strategy necessarily, but what have you found to be the most effective way to really sell through a concept or a new marketing direction that you want to go to leadership, right? You have a founders that are married, and probably a little deeper than that in the executive team. But what is it that you found to be the most effective when selling through that new concept to executive leadership?
It might be a little unfortunate being part of the leadership team. like sales is actually pretty easy, but I would say that the main thing that I push on, I'll talk about with my team, right, is and I talked about this all the way from the hiring process to day to day. Opinions don't matter, but points of view are really powerful, right? And I think the main thing is, and the differentiation between the two is, oh, why don't we do X, Y, or Z? Or I think we should X, Y, or Z. Those are all opinions, but coming with, hey, I want to try to do X because what I think will happen is it'll drive X amount more, visitors, that'll convert at this rate, that'll blah, blah, blah. So being able to take that time to think through what the possible outcomes are, that makes the sell-through process so much easier. Because one, I'm not second guessing everything. I see you've thought about it, and I could understand. And I think it's important to give people opportunity to succeed. Whereas if everything is just top down, I think it's a lot more challenging. And part of the most rewarding aspect of our roles, hopefully, is helping people develop so they can go on and do amazing, great things at other organizations, right? And if you've never given them the chance, I don't, bad example, but let's pretend, someone on my team was like, hey, this Facebook thing, I'm not sure where it's going. Skywriting is going to be the future. And if you actually look at it, the cost to, hire a pilot to do this and blah, 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 and the impression level, I'd be like, oh, well, let's try skywriting. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's an opportunity to give people a chance to succeed and learn from mistakes. And if you come with a strong point of view, that's so much more helpful than, random let's thoughts and try this.
Yeah, with outcomes. Like
with
hey,
outcome, what do you expect to
here's
happen?
why I think this will work based on this analysis that I've done. And do you, like, let's say it's skywriting and it's something you're like, well, I don't know. I mean, do you, when they have that idea, do you say, bring that up to leadership and have them actually sell that through on with you in terms of why it is? Or, how do you allow them that opportunity to really sell through that idea?
I think one of the things that is amazing about Thistle is, we try to hire professionals to be professional. So I'm not running every thought or question or test through my rest of my leadership team. I'm keeping them in the loop on what we're doing and what the outcomes are and where we see opportunities and things like that. But yeah, I try to hopefully have my team, give them the opportunity to actually bring that up. And then hopefully when we see successes, I, recognize this is the person who did that. If we see failures, it's my fault. I think that differentiation is very important. Recognize the people who are driving success and take ownership of mistakes and things that don't work out. That gives your team so much more confidence to try more things, gives them an opportunity. And it helps, again, as we were talking about in this box, how do you connect the dots of the future leaders of the organization are? And if you're not rewarding them and giving credit and kudos along the way, you're missing out on such a huge opportunity to, encourage internal growth through talent.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you also have to give them the ability to fail too.
That's right.
It's not always about the successes. It's, as you mentioned before, it's about trying new things, and it's okay to fail. This is the strategy you went with. It obviously didn't work, but that's okay.
There's no such thing as a bad test, right? And using that mindset, yeah.
Yeah, because if you never test, you never learn.
Right.
And there's Pearl. Here comes the music.
Sorry, guys. Don't mean to be kicking you off, but love what you're doing over at Thistle. I just realized I met you guys a couple of years ago back at Expo West when that was still a thing.
Oh, great, yeah. In the before times.
Before the meal delivery and before, pre-PC, pre-COVID.
Yeah, that's a good one. PC.
But totally love what you guys are doing, bringing awareness to food waste, sustainability, and nutrient density. It's incredible. Keep doing that. The consumers definitely need to be aware, and it needs to keep going in that
world
direction.
Needs it.
Yes, 100%.
Very real, very real. Right. Well, thank you, Marty. Thank you,
Thanks,
Pearl.
Aaron.
Appreciate the time.
Thanks, Marty. Thanks, Aaron.
Right.
Bye, Pearl. Thanks, brand innovators.